That is carried. Thank you. Presentations and delegations, I do not believe we have any at this time. Business arising out of the minutes, please, item 4. Seeing none, we will move down to item 5, bylaws, page 7, please. This will be bylaw 2022-15, land use bylaw 0123 amendment, and we will have a public hearing first. Okay. Moving into the public hearing at 1:02 p.m., I would like to note that our MGA states that you may not take part in the discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. If you have a pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest, and it's a general nature. You are to abstain from any discussion of the matter and from voting. You are to leave the room until the matter has been dealt with, and you should make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in a public hearing as a member of the public. Very good. I declare this public hearing open. And I ask the development officer to please explain the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw. Is this Mr. Teal? Thank you. The podium's yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and members of council, administration. So a brief presentation for the public hearing for bylaw 2022-15. Just going to go to the few other attachments that are in my way here.
It'll be right in here.
Yeah, okay, there we go. That'll
Turn your mic off, please.
clear that up. Nope. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, technical difficulties right off the hop. Your Worship, bylaw 2022-15 is about changing the designation on 2 parcels that are located in the Southeast Industrial Park. They're up on your screens and up on the large screen behind me, outlined in yellow. So one of them is directly south of the cemetery, the other is a little bit towards the southwest. They're both along 68th Street, which was recently serviced with water and sewer, gravel road, and also 48th Avenue splits the two. Currently they're designated DC7, which is a very specific industrial district that only accommodates medical cannabis production. At the time when these lots were created, that was kind of a little bit of the flavor of the day, so to speak, and there was lots of interest. And the developer is, that industry has changed quite a bit in the years that that designation was put in place. And the developer, the owner of the properties, has expressed an interest to have a broader range of industrial uses available to be able to market the 2 properties. Certainly that I-1 district, which is what it's requesting, would allow more things like light industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, storage, would give a much broader range of uses to market the properties and fits within the Southeast Area Structure Plan's overall intent and direction for this particular area. Administration or planning staff have no issues with the proposed amendment, very much do support this approval of this request. There have been no objections expressed, and after all that said, Your Worship, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much. Before I move forward with any type of rules that I would explain, do we have gallery members that are here for this public hearing? Well, seeing none then, we'll be able to skip down and I'll address then my council for comments. Seeing none then, do you have any closing comments you'd like to add?
Other than the recommendation is for second and third reading of the bylaw, Your Worship. That is it for my comments.
Thank you. Therefore, I will declare the public hearing closed at 1:06 p.m. I would ask council at this time then to now go back to page 7 of our agenda, and I would ask for second reading of bylaw 2022-15. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2022-15 and
If there's no questions, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Third and final reading, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council gives third reading to bylaw number 2022-15.
Call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time, Mr. Teal. Moving down now, please, to new business, page 13 of your agenda, item 6A. And this is the appeal of encroachment agreement non-approval. And we have Councillor Blatz that would like to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and just to inform everyone that I am in a conflict of interest with this particular item on the agenda, as I've had several conversations with the gentleman who has made this application, as he is my neighbor. So I will be recusing myself from this portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. All right, moving forward, who will be speaking to this, Mr. Williams, or CAO Williams?
At this time, Director Grieco will let us know how we'll proceed.
And I'll defer this to Kyle Sloan, the Development Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. The podium is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This application, or this matter came to administration via an application for a development permit for a detached garage. The proposed location of the garage shown on the site plan showed that it would encroach into two right-of-ways, one being a shallow utility right-of-way and one being an overland drainage right-of-way for concrete swale on the property. The application, because of these encroachments that were shown, was circulated to a number of departments throughout administration. And after internal discussion, the applicant was informed that administration would not agree to the proposed encroachments. And the primary reasons for this decision was that in the case of the overland drainage right-of-way, the encroachment, or the right-of-way provides space for town staff to maintain and potentially repair or replace the concrete drainage swale that exists at that location. And the proposed location of the garage would inhibit staff ability to do that maintenance. For the shallow utility right-of-way on the south side of the property, while there are currently no shallow utilities in that right-of-way, the closest is an ONET line that is actually off the property line on the public boulevard. But that right-of-way exists not just for existing utilities and infrastructure, but for future infrastructure as well, for as a reserve space for utility companies to use it in the future at any point if they were to install their infrastructure. Following this notice of non-approval from administration, the applicant has submitted a written appeal for council to review this decision. And the reasons for this appeal are summarized in the RFD as well. One being that the drainage right-of-way on the west side of the property is entirely on the applicant's property and not shared with their neighbor to the west. They feel like with that, the burden of providing that maintenance space that I discussed falls entirely on them rather than being shared. For the utility right-of-way, they note that there are no utilities currently in this right-of-way and that there is space that has been used for the ONET line that exists to the south of their property. They also feel that the utility right-of-way should begin where the sidewalk meets the boulevard and not on the property line. Administration has some comments on regarding those reasons for appeal. First being regarding the drainage right-of-way and the concrete swale. The fact that it is all on one side on one parcel and not shared with the neighbor to the west is quite standard, and I looked through the various drainage right-of-ways at the rear of properties throughout town. Of the 8 that I noticed, 2 are shared between 2 neighbors, but 6 of the ones are entirely on one side of the property line, just as this one is here. For the utility right-of-way to the south, all utility right-of-ways begin at the property line. There are no utility right-of-ways outside the property on a public boulevard because it's already public space and the town doesn't need a right-of-way on its own road right-of-way. So they do all begin at the property line, not where the sidewalk meets the boulevard necessarily. And these right-of-ways vary in width, both for the drainage right-of-way and utility right-of-way. But as seen here for the utility right-of-way on the south, the neighbor to the west actually has a 3.5-meter right-of-way that is quite a bit wider than the one on the subject property here. For risks and consequences, council may request further information from administration prior to making a decision on this matter. Council may provide direction to administration on amendments to the existing right-of-ways or replacements for them if desired. And council may overturn administration's decision and approve the encroachment as shown in this proposed site plan. I do want to note, though, that approving or agreeing to enter an encroachment agreement is not an approval of the development permit for a garage itself. The development authority would still have to review the application as a whole to make a decision on that permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Before I ask my questions, I'd open the floor to council at one time here to see who has any questions. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Question through you to Mr. Sloan with regards to the concrete swale. So is there any other access to the swale besides his property? What is on the other side of this property? And is there access that the town could have to the swale? And I was just wondering, because once the garage is built over top, you wouldn't have any access at all, but maybe you could just explain to me whether or not there would be any access maintenance-wise from the other property, and I don't know if there's a house there or not, I can't remember.
Thank you. Through your worship. To the west of the concrete swale is another residential property. So at the west property line, at the rear of this property is a fence. And then it's the backyard for the house on the next street over. So the access for this section of the concrete swale would be solely through this property.
Thank you. I have a question. Why can't he build to the north and resolve that problem? Is it because he's planning to access his garage with a concrete over as a driveway over the utility right-of-way?
Thank you. He could build it to the north so that there are no encroachments on these 2 right-of-ways. The primary concern for the applicant was that if he were to keep the garage entirely outside of these right-of-ways and not encroach, then it would take up a good portion of his backyard.
So where would the driveway go? How would he enter the garage?
The driveway, or the entrance to the garage is to the south onto the Douglas Place, onto the side street. There is no lane at this location. So the driveway, in the land use bylaw, driveway also has to be at least 6 meters in length from the edge of the property line as well. That's one of the variances that the development authority would have to consider when looking at the development permit itself.
So he's going to be going from the driveway to pavement or driveway to what?
Onto pavement, yes, and so therefore the driveway would have to be paved
It would have to be
itself.
paved, that's correct. Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Daly?
So just for my own clarification then, so he's going to be asking for a variance for his driveway as well, because of course it's not going to meet, he's going to be too close to his property lines, and he's going to be obstructing the swale, which will affect other neighbors for drainage in their areas as well.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes to most of that, but I do want to clarify that the garage is not over top of the swale or replacing it. It would be right next to the swale. So the development of the garage wouldn't affect the swale. It would affect town staff's ability to get equipment in alongside it to maintain it in the future.
Counselor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to Mr. Sloan. So I guess I'm kind of confused because the drawing shows a box that looks like it's going over the swale, but now you're saying that the garage would not be built over the swale?
Yes, and if I could grab the mouse, thank you. I'll highlight here that the garage, there's different layers. So the swale is just this thin line here on the edge of the property. The red dashed line is the right-of-way. Yeah.
One,
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl. So just supplemental to that, so that it's not being built on there, and you're saying that even going up to the edge of that swale would not give enough room for us to have access if we had to do any maintenance or reconstruction, is that what you're saying?
Thank you, that's correct. Part of the circular feedback from other departments when it was circulated was from operations with a concern that if they needed to replace that, they wouldn't have enough space to get whatever equipment they need to work on that swale. They wouldn't be able to fit it between the fence and the garage if the garage were there.
Counselor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just one question for Mr. Sloan there. Do we have any idea with the building of that garage and with the overland drainage, whether that garage would impede the drainage, create an issue for the drainage, or is your professional opinion simply access for repair and maintenance?
Thank you. Through your worship, there would be conditions in the development permit, and it would be looked at from the building inspector on the building permit, that drainage be considered in the design and that it be directed towards either the swale or the edge of the property where it doesn't negatively impact neighboring properties.
Counselor Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering the impact of this construction to the neighbors. Obviously, there's a residence to the, would that be west in behind there? Has any canvassing been done in the neighborhood as far as impact?
Thank you. Through the chair, because this application was, just to go back, for the development permit application, the variances requested would mean that the Municipal Planning Commission is the development authority. Prior to this application going to the Municipal Planning Commission for approval, notices would be sent out to adjacent neighbors for feedback. This application had not gotten to that stage. We realized, looking at the site plan right-of-way, that we would need to have this discussion about the right-of-ways first. So we haven't, the application hasn't gotten to the point where it be circulated to neighbors yet.
So just one more question, just to help me. So the way it sits now in the design, the garage would be about 2.4 meters, the utility right-of-way, and that would be covered with concrete, that particular, because the utility right-of-way is about 2.4 meters. The garage would be covering. Is that correct? To the property line?
Sorry, do you mean the right-of-way for the concrete swale on the
Right-
west side?
Right. Well, it would be covered with concrete is what I guess my question is. My concern is if we had to do a dig, I think the only dig there would be you'd own it, if it ever happened, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sorry, for the utility right-of-way to the south, that is a 2.4 meter right-of-way. The total width of the right-of-way is 2.4 meters. And yes, so the garage would encroach on that to within 2 feet of the property line. So while there are no utilities in that right-of-way right now, it would impede the ability for utility companies to install their infrastructure there. Yes.
That was my question. Further questions, Councillor Cummings?
I have two sort of related questions, Your Honor. So a question for staff here. If we don't approve this and he moves his garage further into the property line, he needs to have a driveway, we approve the driveway because it's shorter, what is the difference to the impediment of that utility right-of-way between a driveway that's paved and this structure, if any?
Thank you. Through your worship. Driveways are allowed to encroach or allowed to go over top of the utility right-of-way because if the obstruction needed to be removed from the right-of-way, it's cheaper and a lot easier to remove a driveway than it is a full building. But also we've seen it actually quite recently where companies do directional drilling underneath the driveway in order to install their infrastructure. Whereas if there's the full weight of the building above where they're drilling, that may have impacts on their ability to actually use that right of way.
Thank you. And with regards to the access of the drainage right-of-way there on the left side of the property, would the administration be open to a change in the development plan to remove the fence or to put the fence to the north of the building, therefore opening up the right-of-way on the other property line as an alternative?
Thank you. Through the chair, or through your worship. I don't believe the municipality would be able to remove a fence that is also co-owned by their neighbor without said neighbor's consent. I don't know if, as part of an approval, we would be allowed to have somebody remove infrastructure if they aren't really involved in the application.
Clarify my question.
Your question?
Would it be unheard of for us to say that, sure, you can have the encroachment on the left side, but only if you can, through whatever means you're required to do, have that fence section removed? Not saying that we shall remove it or we're giving you permission to remove that fence. We will only approve that encroachment if you're able to have that fence removed. Sorry, as a clarification.
Thank you. Yes, I understand now. If we had a drainage right-of-way on the other side of the fence, I think that's a more realistic possibility. But whether or not the fence is physically there, we can't go beyond the fence where the fence is to do any maintenance because we have no right-of-way to the west of it.
I'd ask one more time if there's any further questions. I'm going to ask a question to council at this time. I'm wondering if, do we feel like we need further information prior to making a decision? Or do you feel that we should move forward and call for the vote? Councillor Daly? Okay. Okay. All right. Sounds like we're moving forward to make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? I'd like a motion, please. Counselor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the council upholds administration's decision not to approve the proposed encroachments into the registered right-of-way plans 941-1633 and 941-1722.
Are there any further questions prior to the vote? Hearing none, we have the motion on the floor. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Sloan. We will now be moving to page 27, please, item 6B. This, Ms. C.A. Williams, who would you like to speak to this?
Director Andrew will be speaking to this, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, at this time, I'll introduce Senior Peace Officer Paul Wright to come and make this proclamation presentation to Council.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of the Council. So it's Municipal Enforcement's recommendation that the month of September be proclaimed as Back to School Traffic Safety Month in the town of Olds. We are looking to do through the strategic alignment, build that collaborative relationship. I'm going to be contacting the schools, touching base with the principals before we carry this out. And the background to this, for us, it falls within the scope of the Alberta Transportation, which designated September as their back to school month as well. We will be doing a social media campaign, so releasing some slides out social media, and we're also conducting a bike rodeo on the 23rd of September, which will target some of the children and some of the kind of bike riders that might be going through the school zones as well for the safety side of things. This will be done through a registration process as well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that information in regards to the proclamation. Questions from council? Seeing none, I'd ask, we have a question? Councilor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. Through you, I just lost your name, sorry. Question for you. So you're doing the social media campaign as well. I was wondering if you were doing any kind of increased enforcement around the schools or through the residential areas where the school buses are travel.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we will. We were doing some enforcement during the school times, at the start of the day and at the end of the day when the school buses turn up, and that should take the form of myself. One of my colleagues will be high visible presence during those times.
Very good. A motion, please. Councilor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that the month of September be proclaimed as Back to School Traffic Safety Month in the town of Olds.
Very good. I call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And thank you for your time. Page 29, please, item 6C, proclamation supports Workers' Appreciation Day. C.O. Williams, is this April? Yes?
Yep. April Webb. April Webb.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Dana Wild. She is the Executive Director of Accredited Support Services, and she will be speaking about Support Workers Appreciation Day.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think there's a presentation here, just it's on the bottom.
That's the one.
Did you want us to click through or would you like to?
I can click, then I don't have to say next and next. Thank you. On behalf of the Olds and Area Service Provider Group, I thank Mayor and Council for providing us the opportunity to present today and to ask for your support in proclaiming a Disability and Family Support Worker Appreciation Day in our community. As you would have seen in your pre-meeting material, our 5 independent agencies work together in our community to address the unique service needs and challenges related to serving families and people with disabilities. Oh, I'm supposed to be clicking. All 5 organizations in our community are nonprofit organizations, and we're all governed by a board of directors. And we use community volunteers to enhance the work that we do. The services provided are generally funded through government contracts or grants, and some organizations do offer some family managed services or some private fee-for-service. Through the multiple and diverse programs that you read about in the submitted material, our agencies support families, children, adults, and seniors in the areas of disability support, community and social inclusion, parenting supports, and building healthy families. Across the province, there are approximately 15,000 people employed in the community disability services sector. Collectively, the organizations in Olds employ about 250. These employees live in and around the community of Olds, accessing services and supporting our local economy. The daily responsibilities of a support worker are significant, and according to ACDS, 2019 workforce survey, wages across the positions in this sector average about $21.27 per hour, and the average wage for a frontline support worker is approximately $18.76 per hour. In Olds and area, our organizations serve approximately 100 adults with disabilities and over 400 families annually. Support workers are trained to assist people in all aspects of their lives as their needs determine. This includes teaching necessary skills while not overstepping and creating a dependency. Support workers are expected to be available, but not visible, ready to support where needed, and to step back when they're not needed. Although not an inclusive list, the diverse responsibilities were listed in your pre-materials. This type of support is essential to the lives of the people that we support, many of whom without it would face institutional living, social stigma, isolation, unaddressed physical, emotional, and medical needs, and family breakdown. When these diverse needs are met, it also serves to lessen a person's dependency on involvement with other systems, such as justice, health, home care, or child intervention. During the early days of COVID-19 pandemic, we found ourselves among many community-driven campaigns that supported essential workers, many of whom were recognizable by the uniforms that they wore, the vehicle they drove, or the building that they worked in. We recognized that the employees working in our sector, providing essential services, were just as deserving of specific recognition, free coffee or a pots and pan parade. Unfortunately, little is known within the community of the work that these workers do. Frontline disability and family support workers do not wear a uniform. They do not drive a marked vehicle or work in a specific building. They are trained to blend in and provide support as required, such as attending medical appointments, buying groceries, helping people to volunteer, work, and socialize in their communities, provide education and support to parents and families, and ensuring safe and healthy environments for children to learn and grow. To fill this recognition gap, These agencies joined together in 2020 and created a Disability and Family Support Worker Day just within our organizations. With minimal funding, we collectively provided employees with homemade cards and small tokens of appreciation, with the vow to move forward with annual recognition. The first year of recognition was very well received. However, as leaders, we wanted to do more. It is more than just recognition through the pandemic. We want to regularly recognize the essential work of these employees, acknowledging the difference that their work makes in the lives of so many people. In September of last year, Olds Town Council provided much appreciated recognition and support by proclaiming Disability and Family Support Worker Appreciation Day in Olds. This proclamation helped us move one step closer to our goal of having employees recognized for the work that they do. So we ask again this year for Town Council support in proclaiming Wednesday, September 28th as Disability, Family and Support Worker Appreciation Day in Olds. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing this very vital information. I'm happy to hear that there's areas that this began in 2013. I remember very slightly some discussions and talk about it, but however, had no idea of the amount of work. Like you say, it came to our attention that the community, unfortunately, little's known about the work they do in the community. So this is very, very important in my opinion. And I've really learned a lot just by reading this. And I will be sharing some of these to some questions. Actually, Councillor Walsh and I were at an event and we both got asked with regards to your children's and adult respite and community access if there was any available. And I thought he'd be the right gentleman to ask in the work that he does and in hospice, but I didn't know about this, but now I can share it. Any questions from council at this time? Well, thanks for the wonderful work, and I'd ask for a motion, please. Councillor Walsh?
I'd be happy to make this motion and thank Dana for an excellent presentation. I move that September 28, 2022 be proclaimed Support Workers Appreciation Day in the town of Olds.
Thank you. Legislative Clerk?
Councillor Walsh, would you be willing to make a friendly recommendation to make it as it is here, Disability and Family Support Worker Appreciation?
Yes.
And we'll correct that.
Yes, no problem.
So our legislative clerk has reflected that it would be a proclamation of Wednesday, September 28, 22 as Disability and Family Support Worker Appreciation Day in Olds. Thank you. I'll call for the vote then, please. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving down now, please, to page 34, item 6D in your agenda. And this is with regards to our fire services sub-agreement. CEO Williams, how would you like to address this?
Thank you, Mayor Dell. I'll speak to this one, and Director Andrew can chime in if I miss anything. So in 2021, the town provided notice to the Mountain View County that it wished to terminate the fire sub-agreement within our ICF framework. This was done more so to trigger negotiations than it was to ever really to withdraw fire services from the county. And that is what this RFD is related to. Now that we are in active negotiations with the county over fire services, things are progressing well. Administration feels that this notice is no longer required and that rescinding it now is both procedurally apt and also a matter of good faith. So.
Thank you very much. I would ask council at this time if I could get the motion on the floor and any questions after. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council move to rescind the letter of July 12, 2021 titled Notice of Termination of Fire Sub-Agreement to the Mount View County from the Town of Olds.
Thank you very much. I agree with our CEO that given that town and county are now engaged in renegotiation and progress is being made, there's no longer a need for this letter. However, if council would like to have any questions before I call for the vote? Seeing none, I call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Page 54, please, item 6E, and this is our material change to the MCC Olds Fiber Limited. And I would ask once again, CEO Williams, how you'd like to address this.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'll speak to this at first, and then this is very much an open issue, so anyone else would like to chime in, please do. As you all know, the OFL has announced a business management agreement with a firm, Four Networks, in partnership with Nation Fiber. Our obligations as the owner of the MCC, that is OFL, require us certain obligations. One involves an expansion when an expansion to the geographical service area occurs, that requires a public notification period to commence. And that is certainly, my understanding, part of the future business plan. The second is the fact of Mountain View Power is currently contained within the MCC Olds Fiber Limited. And it is both council's wish and the MCC's wish to have that entity taken from the corporation and brought to the town. And that's probably best for now, and let others chime in as need be.
You. I will be asking council to make 3 separate motions, so we'll put the first motion on the floor, and then if they wish to speak, they are welcome to. Councillor Cummings.
I recommend that council move to accept the Olds Fiber Limited Board of Directors' recommendation regarding the area and operation of Olds Fiber Limited and Mountain View Power as following. 1, the expansion of OFL into a geographical area other than Alberta, including all of Canada. And 2, the transfer of Mountain View Power from a municipally controlled corporation to the town of Olds.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Prior to the vote, I would ask, are there any questions? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I would ask for the second motion, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion to set Monday, September 26, 2022 at 1 p.m. in Town Council chambers as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the material change to the municipally controlled corporation, OFL.
Very good. Any questions? I would call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And the third and final motion, please, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council direct administration to proceed with removing Mountain View Power from the municipally controlled corporation and transfer its business to the town of Olds.
Final questions? We have questions?
Comments.
Oh, sorry, comments then, and you both put your hands up at the same time. So I'll start with you as you made the motion, and then we'll go to Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I just really think that this would be a good move. This will give, I believe, our administration an opportunity to utilize profits or monies from Mountain View Power to fund some of our maybe social programs within the town of Olds and go back to the community like it was originally intended to do.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Blatz. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I am a little confused about this, although I fully support moving Mountain View Power from OFL to the town and the procedures we're probably going to do with it. I don't believe we can pass a motion at this time telling staff to do that, since we have not had the, public hearing on the matter. We can't actually direct staff to do this until after the public hearing. So I don't believe this last motion could be passed procedurally until after that. They can come up with a plan, for sure. We can amend it to say, proceed with developing a plan to do this, but we can't ask them to do it until after the public hearing.
Response, Counselor Blatz, and then Counselor Ryan.
What if I were to make a friendly amendment to this that say, once the completion of the public hearing is completed, that administration have the opportunity to move Mountain View Power out of the municipally controlled corporation? Would that be adequate, Legislative Clerk? Or
Gail Williams, and then Counselor Ryan.
Yeah, just to clarify both Councillor Cummings and Councillor Blatt's comments, I would agree in the sense, because James is certainly interpreting correct, that we can't preempt the public hearing in a lot of ways, because we're almost preceding the, or guessing the outcome of said public hearing, which is not the intent. But as the author of this RFD as well, the intent I had was, and I didn't phrase it correctly, which is my mistake, was to more investigate those options of what Mountain View Power being abstracted from the MCC would look like. And we have an idea, and a recommendation would come forward to both OFL as the MCC and the town. So at this time, my recommendation would be to perhaps just leave that motion to the side.
Are you okay with that prior to your comment, Counselor Ryan, or would you like to speak? You would like to speak?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I actually was questioning whether or not we had to wait for the public hearing, because we're talking about a material change to the OFL, not a material change. We don't have it included in here as a material change to Mountain View Power. So the public hearing discusses material change specifically to the MCC OFL. It doesn't have anything here saying anything about us discussing at a public hearing Mountain View Power. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine with moving forward.
Counselor Cummings?
Thank you. In the first motion that we passed, that is a public hearing request for the transfer of Mountain View Power from OFL to the town, which is a fundamental change in OFL. There is no requirement, because Mountain View Power is not an MCC into itself, for a public hearing on any issue related to Mountain View Power, other than the fact that we're moving it out of OFL. So the reason why it's in Part A2 of the recommendation is because it's affecting the change, a fundamental change in OFL by removing it from OFL. So the Part C, intent-wise, from what the CAO has stated, was simply to find out the best way of doing that process. But it is absolutely a fundamental change to OFL and is part of the public hearing of OFL.
Mr. Blatz?
So we have one of two options here, then, if I understand this process correctly. Either we choose not to move forward with item C, and I would then withdraw my motion, or would we amend the motion to read that we direct administration to proceed with investigating our options upon removal of Mountain View Power from the municipally controlled MCC? Would that be an option, Legislative Clerk, or should we just rescind this motion at this time? I mean, I believe that administration needs some opportunity to investigate what their options are and how to move forward. September 26th is going to come very quickly, and I don't want to be reactive. I'd rather be proactive in a process if we could investigate what our options would be.
I'll let the CEO give the final word, and I would also support the withdrawal of this motion at this time, but we'll see what he has to say.
Thank you, Your Worship, and again, my apologies for causing the confusion. Regarding Councillor Blatz's comments, I think either one would serve the intent as I see it. It kind of is a chicken and egg situation, because the MCC owns Mountain View Power, we own the MCC, so I don't think there's a wrong way, as long as we're not perceived as preempting the public meeting, which wasn't the intent of this this wording in this motion.
So that would totally confuse our public, in my opinion, and I would like to ask Council again, or Councillor Blatz, whether she would like to withdraw or again work with the motion.
Councillor Daly?
Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the idea of moving forward with the, inserting the word investigation into that motion. And the reason being is that it would bring useful information to the public hearing on the 26th and give the public and council some insight into what some of our options would be. And so I think it's good information to gather beforehand.
Very good. Thank you very much for your comments. And Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I concur with Councillor Daly and Councillor Blatz with regards to just changing the motion slightly. I do think that we need to just to move ahead and to get the ball rolling. So I would rather have a motion that says investigate and bring some options or look at options and start moving.
I'll leave this to Councillor Blatz then to reword by removing out and however you wish to word your motion.
Well, here's what I would think my option would, my motion would read, that council direct administration to proceed with investigating options by removing or upon removal of Mountain View Power from the MCC, and just leave it at that at this point in time.
Just to confirm, our legislative clerk has received that?
Yes, so I have the council direct administration to investigate.
Can't hear the mic. No, it's not on.
There we go. The council direct administration to investigate removing Mountain View Power from the municipally controlled corporation. And that's where I don't know where you want to go with are we leaving the word transfer in there?
No, take it out. And report back to council with our options. That sound good? I'm comfortable with that myself.
All right. Does anybody want that repeated? You ready for the vote? Consensus? Okay. Good. No more questions. I'll call for the vote. The motion's on. Are you voting? Okay. Okay. I'm just watching. Our legislative clerk is still writing, and you're comfortable? Okay. We've heard the motion come back to us. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for the discussion, ladies and gentlemen. All right. We are ready now to move to item 7 in our agenda, page 56, reports from council on boards and committees on page 56. As council has been on some summer time away, I'm just going to, instead of asking reports around the table, I'm just going to allow at this time for anybody who wishes to speak, and we'll go back to our regular format. Or if you have any questions with regards to any of the reports that are in this RFD. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I know it was summer, but I was still very busy. Just wanted to point out that we have the key messages from the Mountain View Seniors Housing Board in our package for you all to read. There is one change, and that is the retreat that we're having for the board is moved to September 16th, and we're actually going to host that at the Operations Center because we have a nice boardroom there, and thought it'd be nice to actually make use of it. So it's going there. And I also encourage all council, whoever was a golfer out there, to join the Mountain View Seniors Housing Foundation Golf Tournament, which is September 15th at Coyote Creek in Sundre. Also wanted to point out that myself and Councillor Blatz had the pleasure of participating in the Operations Center tour at an open house on Friday. I think we had about at least 25 people or more in each tour, and so I would classify that as being somewhat successful. And it was kind of interesting because they did do some demonstrations. They showed people the cameras, and they drove them through the drain, the drain pipes, and they created obstructions and things like that for you to view. So it's kind of interesting to see it actually in work. And I really appreciated Director Greco's way of handling it, as well as Dale's, because they got their staff involved in the tours. The staff actually did the tours, not the director, not the manager. So I thought that was really great. Gave people exposure to our staff, and they had the staff there to explain things and do the demonstrations. So I thought it was a really good day, and I wanted to thank both of them for doing for organizing it. I think it was a really good opportunity for the public to check out the new Ops Center. So thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Anyone else like to share? Okay, we'll start with Walsh and then Wilson.
Yeah, the only meeting I attended was last Friday, and that was the South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission meeting. Talked a lot about olds at that meeting, but I'm not going to get into the details. I shared a slide deck of what that was about. But we did talk about money a lot and about capital and building capital within South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission. The current model is not creating reserves that will help replace it down the road. Even though we're only 10 years in, it's becoming obvious pretty quickly that unless we start building up reserves, we're not going to be able to continue on as a South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission 15 years out. And the model says $3 million a year should be going into reserves. Currently, there's about 700 and some thousand going into reserves, so keep falling behind every year. To increase reserves to $3 million a year, it would take 50 cents a cubic meter to do that. So that's just looking forward to what it would take. So I guess the board has asked this question. Would you like our CAO or the commission to come and speak to our council? Absolutely. If we can get them on the before budget or around budget time, that would be, he'd be willing to come and discuss the operations of South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission. So that was a question put to me and all board members, just to fill up his calendar for the next couple months. If that's acceptable,
Yeah.
then I'll just have administrations talk to each other and find a date that works. Other than that, the rain event throughout has created a 16% increase in revenue, which is a good thing. Probably not a good thing for the communities that are experiencing the excess water going down the pipeline. But the other discussion around Olds was, what do we do with our bill that they've created here through the rain event and through the INI? And it's going to be between $90,000 and $100,000. And the board made the motion that they'll foot 10% of that, but they'll be sending us a bill for the rest of it once those invoices are all in from what they had to think. So just not a good news one, but it'll be coming our way sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I agree, having had sat on the Wastewater Commission Board for the prior 4 years of this, I think it's a very good idea to have the CAO come. He came on board about halfway through my term sitting there, and he's made some great changes to the Wastewater Commission, and I think that it would be nice, perhaps maybe if you would come to the October PNP meeting and make a presentation, which would be prior to our organizational review meeting at the end of October, and as we're going into budget discussions. I think that would be an ideal time for him to come and present to us. And perhaps maybe at that time too, being that he wears two hats, he might also be able to bring us up to date on our Mountain View Regional Waste Commission as well. The same CAO, so.
Yeah. So you can get back and let him know that we invite him to a PNP meeting for the future?
Yeah, I'll extend the date to him, and if it works for him, I'm just not saying it will work, but I'll make the inquiry.
Have you been notified of the increase that we'll be getting, the rest of the bill? Or is this the first?
I've been I had conversations with CEO Weatherick around it, and he predicted the outcome rather well. But the final decision was not made until Friday, so.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wilson, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I just have a similar comment regarding the Mountain View Region Water Commission. We have been working through the summer and late spring finalizing the budget there, and similarly some challenges with the future projected CapEx spend and funding and where those dollars are going to come from. And probably look to do, and it was suggested to do something similar, have the executive director of the Mountain View Region Water Commission come in and chat with council as well, sometime in the coming months. And perhaps even as well, extend an invite, pick a date and have council, those interested, do a tour of the Region Water Commission facilities just outside of Innisfail. So those are a couple things on the go. And just a public service announcement, the Olds College Broncos similarly are having a golf tournament. I think it's August 29th. And I think today is the last day for registration. So if you're so interested in the tournament at Carstairs, feel free to go onto the website and sign up. Thanks.
Thank you. Dan, Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, as you mentioned, summer hours, not much going on. Summer Synergy, attended that, which was a great success. I feel that when you get 300 plus young people interested in agriculture all in the same building, and the amount of support that we've seen at that event with industry as well as with their families, it was a great show. And then also, as well as a number of other councillors in the room, attended the Olds College Smart Farm reception in the field that night as well, which was great to show our support from the town of Olds to the college, but also to the agriculture community. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just say during this summer, I want to thank our CAO for inviting all council to join him on a CAO council conversation, which we learned quite a bit of information on during this summer. Also, I've been really proud to follow the community services barbecues on Thursdays. Just myself and my husband, for sheer interest and discussion with the residents. I am so proud of you in the gallery and the community services department on what you do and the time you spend speaking to those public members. Of course, we see a lot of the same people at all of those. However, speaking, I'm going to say the biggest topic was garbage with all the questions, but it's a real honor to see the way you work and commit and are so engaged with these people that show up every Thursday. And I know there's one more left, and there's supposed to be a foam spray with the fire department, I believe. Anyways, congratulations, kudos to you all. And I'd also like to say thank you to Gary Gaudette and April for attending the Displaced Ukrainians. That was just open to anybody who wanted to show up. There's a lot for us to learn in this community, and I think the best thing that came out of that was them being able to just be together. And there's so many in our communities. And it just opened my mind that this is an area that we don't have to reinvent the wheel with. We have so many involved people in this community. H&R Block, Peter Premchek paid for the barbecue for all the attendees. So congratulations and thank you to him as a community member. And we're going to be bringing a lot of information back to council to see, hopefully, a porthole of some sort, I believe, is what the community's decided they're going to work on with the thoughts that were around that table. I was just trying to understand and seek to learn from them to bring back to council. I think there's ways we can help and it's looking positive. They're desperately in need of things such as transportation, learning English, which the library, I understand, is going to help teach in September. They're desperately needing daycare facility for their children so they could work. There's lots on their plate, so that's all I have to share, and I'm just grateful that I was able to hear their needs. If that's everything, can I please get a motion for the reports? Okay. Councillor Ryan, I was gonna end up making it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move that the reports from council, authorities, boards, committees, and commissions ending August 22nd, 2022 be received for information.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for that. And we will now move forward to item 8, quarterly financial position, page 64. And I believe Director Linderman will take over this.
Thank you. So being presented today is the financial update to June 30th, 2022. I won't go through each of the schedules that were provided in the agenda, but I will hit the highlights. At 50% of the way through the fiscal year, our operating budget is 40% spent, and our capital budget is 12.2% spent. As you know, most of our capital happens in July and August, so that is to come in the next update. But I would then just open it up if council has any questions on anything in there.
So neat and tidy. I'll open the floor to council at this time. Start with Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for the Finance Director on the balance sheet. Can you comment, maybe I overlooked it in the material, the cash on hand and deposits increasing by, I think, 3.7 million from 2021 to 2022, 8.5 million to 12.1. Is there anything in particular that's driving that? I read the note. It talks about deposits and ATB and so on.
That's just a direct correlation of the June 30th tax deadline. So we just have all that cash waiting to be spent for the rest of the year.
Sounds like we have a lot of automatic deposits, which is great. That's the system we want to have. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Director Lindeman. Can you tell me, with regards to the elected official remuneration, is that going to be posted on the website like we've done before?
Yes, it will be posted probably by tomorrow.
So thank you.
Legislation clerk?
It's included in the agenda. It's also posted there, but easier when Director Linderman does it.
Okay. Okay. Did you hear that? Easier when you do it.
Easier to find.
Okay, very good. No further questions then? Motion, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the financial report for the 6-month period, January 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2022 be accepted for information. And thank you, Director Linderman, for such a nice report. Easy to read. Appreciate this.
It's absolutely in order. Okay, those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving down to correspondence and information, page 71, please. Item 9A, correspondence and information. All right, I'll get a motion on the floor before we have questions. Somebody different? Councillor Cummings?
Sure, I'll put the motion on the floor that the correspondence and information report ending August 22nd, 2022 be received for information.
Good. As you can see, we have a number of items on the list. Is there any that council would like to speak to at this point? Very good. We will be, I do believe I did put the letter in that was addressed with regards to Olds Policing Advisory Committee. I would just note that we will be responding that back to the mayor. He's contacted me twice that we will be not answering this until after our organizational meeting. There was one other, was there one that administration was looking for, page 70? on page 77. I would like to address the letter that was addressed to Mayor and Town Council on page 77. Just confirm with our CAO, please. I believe we do an appreciation day for our staff, and we do have a barbecue for them annually, as we're being asked to do for our staff and our summer hires. That we have been doing that annually. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Last week was actually the summer 2022 barbecue.
Very good. And as far as a follow-up to this letter with request to keep one outdoor toilet open in the winter, I would like to know how would we address this in the ask. The letter's asking that could we keep one outdoor toilet open in the winter for those of us who walk, and they stated Heartland Green, Centennial Park, Rotary Park, or Winter Lake. And there's a reason why we don't. Can someone please explain? Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Dal. This issue of 365 toilet actually came up at service review, and council receiving, I'll call it a business case, part of a business case for something else, once we get the cost on what those toilets cost right now. We're not totally prepared to answer the mechanics of what a winter toilet looks like at this time.
That's all I had. If there's nothing further, we have a motion on the floor. Oh, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. With regards to the letter on page 79 from Uptown Olds talking about decreasing the speed limit, we had conversation in previous council with regards to this. I don't know whereabouts we'd want to go with that, but there is an ask within the letter about the decrease, so I'm not sure whether or not we would want that as a discussion going forward in a future council meeting.
Okay, just to ducktail that, there's been a couple here talking about speed limits, but go ahead, C.O. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl and Councillor Ryan. Actually, there's two correspondents that are related to this item, almost on opposite sides, but not really. Item D from Mr. Marston. He has contacted us several times about speed on 52nd Avenue prior to construction happening. He's one of the people against a lowering of the speed limit, for instance, as a logic that it rewards, or it punishes everyone else for, obeying the current speed limit, so to speak. And whereas Uptown Olds sees it differently, and mainly probably for their own 2 or 3 street district. But this is going to come to council in the form of a community service bylaw update, which Director Andrew and Senior Constable Wright are working on at the moment, and we're hoping by the first October's first meeting, you'll have a draft, which will have that.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. In regards to page 88 with our news release, again, there is an incorrect email address. Have we corrected that?
Yes, on the PDF here, it's not corrected, but we did release updated versions.
Perfect, thank you.
Email address.
Finally, I have, when I was speaking to the citizens at the Thursday barbecues, twice came up of residents that were on our construction area near the elementary school right now, that one street, of are we prepared when school starts with where are we going to put the cars and the buses, the drop-offs, and where are the school buses going to go was the main concern, just for your information. Certainly, if you'd like to speak to it, if you know what the answer is, they may be watching.
It's certainly not a solve-all answer, but heading to the east of the school it's our road allowance, but generally it's gated off to an extent. I think from the school to the sportsplex adjacent to the ORE grounds, that will be opened up for traffic. It's not an ideal road, but there will, even with this additional opening, there will be traffic concerns for the first 4 to 6 weeks of school. There's really no way we can get around it, but we're hoping that additional access to the east will improve the situation.
I'm sure they'll be happy to hear at least it's being discussed. Very good. If there's nothing further, we have a motion on the floor from Councillor Cummings. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're moving down to item 84. The CAO report is a verbal. This is new to our agenda, item 9B. Mr. C.O. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yeah, this report is just largely an update on, I won't say my activities, but almost a catch-all for things that weren't contained prior to agenda cutoff as well. I only have one item, and that concerns the Rotary Athletic Park tree project. If you recall that presentation from Mr. Smith with the Rotary Club. The question to council is going to be if you require any more information before we proceed with kind of a memorandum of understanding with the Rotary Club. We have one drafted right now that we're both considering, and it doesn't get into detail. It's just more of outlining the project. We both agree to the project, and that once locations and tree varieties and schedules are determined, we'll meet and stay in regular contact about that. So if council is comfortable with administration proceeding with the Rotary Club to start that project, they want a groundbreaking in fall of this year and work commencing largely next spring.
Consensus? Thank you. I'll get a motion to accept the verbal report from the CAO with regards to the Rotary Park. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council accepts the verbal report from the CAO and be accepted as information.
We will move down to page 85, please, item 9C, the Coyote Tractor Champion Cup Economic Impact Report. I've had such positive feedback from people on this saying, wow, that was sure interesting. How did you do that? So let's hear some information. Who's speaking to this? Or
Let Director Wagstaff do the introductions.
So the full report was released last week when Sport Tourism Canada did a press release, and then we put this report on our website. We have it in the package today. It's also available on our website currently on the Kyoto Tractor Champions Cup webpage, part of our website. Some highlights I just want to reiterate that the methodology of this is why we went out and got a contractor to help us do it, so that we could utilize their expertise both on the front end during the process and then on the analysis, and that's what they provided for us. The demographics, it did show for this event. It was a regional event as far as the attendance here directly, and then that's with 2/3 of the attendees being from the region. And when we say the region, when we were doing the survey, it was between Airdrie and Leduc is what we considered to be central Alberta. And then anything outside of that was the rest of Alberta. So the two major cities were considered rest of Alberta. With that, the questions that became very important for us to take a little bit of a deeper look at is also the travel. So not just where do people come from when they come to events here in Olds, but then where do they stay? So those are two pieces of very good data for us to begin to build on. And then, of course, we do know from anyone who was in town in that period of time, knew it was more active. We knew there were more people in the uptown and the rest of the restaurants and businesses in the community. But this begins to be able to move it beyond just being anecdotal observations or opinions, and actually be able to put some data and scientific analysis to it, where there was over 1.65 million in spending, and over of that it was almost 1.5 million of spending of those that came in. So that does show that old analogy of when you collect your pennies, it becomes $1 very quickly. And that's how this kind of analysis works. Is there is a breakdown in here on average what every individual spent, and that was in the hundreds of dollars. Well, when you start to multiply that over the week of the event and the number of travelers that we had visit our community, that built up quite quickly. So that's quite impressive. Again, the reason we did this and why we are going to consider doing this more in the future for major events that are hosted in our community is to give us that baseline so that it's not just theoretical, but that we know what kind of an impact it has, and it's not just our opinions. It actually becomes something that we can refer to later. So again, we did know anecdotally by our opinions and observations it was a great success. This adds to that success. And then the final piece, which is yet to come, is we're still working on closing off the financials. So that'll be yet to report for that host committee to be able to report to council and the public very soon.
Good. Are there questions for Director Wagstaff? I'd ask for a motion, please. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the Coyote Tractor Champions Cup Economic Impact Survey results be received for information. And again, kudos to all of the town staff that participated in this and worked very hard and diligent to make this a very successful event for the town of Olds.
Yes.
And I think that it's truly appreciated for all the hard work and dedication that's gone into this. Again, thank you.
And now we have the evidence-based facts, and also thank you to the community in Mountain View County, Airdrie, Calgary, everywhere, where everybody volunteered. It was great. Hope to see it again. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now, page 110, this very interesting item, Youth Advisory Council. This is very timely. I had a teacher volunteer and concerned citizens say that we should start something like this because there's so many students in the community that need something. So thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dahl, Council and Administration. Thank you for letting us speak to this today. I'm pretty excited about this myself. Gary and I have been doing some work on it, so we're going to go through the presentation here for you. Is it just right in here? Yeah. All right, so first I just want to mention we have Letitia Gohl, the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club, as well as Luann Statchuk, who's a teacher at the high school, and she runs the leadership program at the high school as well. So they're here to help us out with any questions you may have with their involvements at the end there. So our youth are not only the leaders of tomorrow, they're leading change today. With the programming we offer, along with the community programming that's offered in the community, we've noticed that there is not a lot of options for youth in the community, therefore leaving them somewhat disengaged. We're hoping the development of the Youth Advisory Council will change that in Olds. And please forgive me, I didn't introduce Gary. This is Gary Gaudet. He's one of our community facilitators. I'm sorry, Gary.
I think they all know.
Just in case. So the mandate of the Youth Advisory Council to provide information and advice to the community in relation to issues involving or affecting youth within the town of Olds, to create and coordinate community events for our local youth, to develop a relationship with various organizations or individuals addressing issues of concern involving our local youth, and to work with the town of Olds on various events throughout the year. So we're hoping to get them engaged, maybe even with some of our events that we host throughout the community as well. So some of the benefits of being a member of the Youth Advisory Council: be an advocate. So promote youth initiatives, attend local events, create social media posts, and promote Youth Advisory Council within the school and more. So boost your resume, acquire some great new employable skills, and gain some leadership experience. And then access training, receive orientation training, plus ongoing mentorship and support from a community development facilitator. Gain experience. Coordinate a community-wide youth event during the Youth Week, which occurs in May, and plan a special event and offer youth engagement awards during that week as well, which we'll talk about. So connect to your town, experience and explore Olds, advise on issues, learn about governance, influence policy, and shape the future of the community. So in conversation with the Boys and Girls Club. We've recently learned that they're currently working on creating a youth center. So this aligns very nicely with the Youth Advisory Council, and we're really looking forward and excited to partnering with them and making this happen. So membership details. It would be a year minimum on Youth Advisory Council. So 1 year to commit to start, and with the possibility of extension if they're still interested in remaining on. A minimum of 2 hours per month, but on average 4 to 5 hours, with opportunities to get involved with special projects, committees, and events. The Youth Advisory will consist of 10 to 12 members. The qualifications: between 14 and 24 and living or attending school in Olds. And how to join. Applications to join are accepted year-round, but each term has an annual deadline of September 15th. Once members are appointed in October, they will begin their work, and new applications will be kept on file for the following year. And of course, it's free to join. So what does a year look like? Members are appointed in October of each year and complete an orientation. They will have monthly meetings. In the new year, the Youth Advisory Council will begin planning for Youth Week in May and decide how they'd like to promote their Youth Engagement Awards, which will be awarded during that week. Recruitment for the Youth Advisory Council term is an important last step to ensure that youth in Olds know they can apply to join as well. So the Youth Engagement Awards, I'll touch base briefly on that. What we're hoping is that the Youth Advisory Council will create the categories for these awards to be given out themselves. So for example, that could look like a most youth engaged retailer. And then there'll be a small plaque or something along those lines that that business or organization will be able to display within their organization. And there'll be more than one. Maybe it'll be a youth friendly service club or most youth friendly restaurant or something along those lines, but we're hoping to leave that in their hands and let them own that and decide what they want that to look like. So why is the Youth Advisory Council important? So the Youth Advisory members are active and engaged citizens who collaborate with service clubs, boards, committees, local organizations, and town council to learn and share a youth perspective. Youth Advisory Council provides decision makers with a means to engage with local youth in a meaningful way on a variety of topics, special projects, and key issues. Including youth insight is an important piece of our strong and vibrant community. So also, why is Youth Advisory important? So the Youth Advisory Council will meet regularly to discuss issues pertinent to young people in Olds, and then we've listed a few that maybe they could put on their agenda for discussion, as well as coming up with their own, of course. So, and especially, why is it important? So impacting change, Youth Advisory Councils can be involved in organizing many events and activities for young people in Olds. They can talk to peers about issues that are important to them and make sure that council and committee members listen to what young people have to say. So working together, they will have the ability to address some of the following issues and more. And so what sort of outcomes are we looking for? Youth will be more connected to the community. We'll have more youth events occurring within the community. Youth will hold each other accountable, resulting in a reduction of vandalism, petty crime, and youth have a strong presence within the community. And budget. So budget for this initiative will be minimal. We're projecting approximately $2,000 a year, and the funding will come from the FCSS budget. So this does fit within the mandate of FCSS and the organization from the province. So some of the money that we've budgeted there would be things such as maybe lunches or dinners when they're meeting, some shirts or jackets to show that they're part of the Youth Advisory Council, maybe stationery supplies, some advertising for the events they're hosting, that sort of thing. And then that's about all, but we do have a question for council. What do you see as the #1 challenge for youth in our community currently?
I think we'll have quite a few answers. I'll start with Councillor Blatz.
Well, one of the biggest obstacles I see at this point in time is that we need to provide a safe meeting place for our youth. I don't believe that we have any type of a youth center or anything like that in our community at this point in time, and I really believe that that's one of the most important things that we need to look at, is to give them a good, healthy, safe place to gather.
I've also been approached, as I said, and what they have shared with me is a huge concern about, how can I share this? So, as we know, a lot of our churches in the community have youth groups, and they try to keep them all going and doing things. They were concerned, much as Councillor Blatt said, that they would like to have a place for them to gather and meet, and safe, that was non-denominational, so that anybody could go at any time, which I'm sure our church groups in our community would accept and allow. It's just that perhaps we have to work with it, looking at it from a different lens, yes. It's Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yeah, I think I agree with Councillor Blatz and yourself with regards to that, but it has to be, we're part of the welcoming and inclusive community, and I think we need to make sure that we are, and that it is encouraged. One of the things that I'd like to see would be youth volunteerism, for us to work on youth volunteerism. We have great volunteers in this community, but we all recognize that people age, and we're getting an older group of volunteers, and I would like to see the youth council encourage youth volunteerism at the local level, so that they're leaders and they can encourage others to join them. And this idea about putting on youth events, I think it's great, but they need to drive it, and they need to find their volunteers amongst themselves too.
Question is, the ages between 14 and 24, where did we get that age limit? I'm naive in this, so I'm asking, would the over 20 students want to leave and go to work somewhere, and et cetera? Can I get some help there?
We gathered that information, we researched it, and on the average, that was for most municipalities. They were between the ages of 14 and 24, and we believe that some of the students at the Olds College would like to be a part of this as well.
But I was hoping to hear, because it had to have a collation, being that they're pretty well living together during a school year anyways. Thank you for that. Any further questions? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I echo the comments. I think it's important to provide an opportunity for the engagement and the forum for the youth to participate in hopefully shaping the direction of the town. I guess just a question I hear, the age range 14 to 24 and all the way up to the perhaps college students. Just wondering if maybe even Lou would talk to what's the participation, what's the engagement with, I don't know, the high school or the middle school, if this gets to that level? How does that work? Or do you envision that working?
Come on up, yeah. Hi, thanks, Councillor Wilson. It's interesting what Councillor Ryan said, and I've really found over 32 years working with youth that when you raise the bar, the kids rise to it. And I really think that this is an awesome opportunity, not just for our leadership kids, but also being the counselor at school. It'll allow us to bring forth students from all of those different areas. And some of you were involved in Change Cafe at our school in March, where we tried to do that, and it was very successful. And I have a lot of students who want to volunteer. For example, the Coyote survey, some of our leadership students were doing that, and I just put out an email. I had 3 or 4 students at my door, and they're like, what do we need to do? Because it was a Friday off. So I think in terms of that youth volunteerism piece, that one of the logical places before was the healthcare system, where students did a lot of volunteering. And when COVID came, that really changed those dynamics, and it was really limited into what they could do, with residents and post-COVID, it's still, has a little bit of opening up, because I did get an email that there were some opportunities, but they're definitely not like they were. And our students, the kids love to volunteer. I mean, when we put on Pierogies for Peace and some of the other events, they just show up and work, and they're there till 9 o'clock cleaning up. So I think just to alleviate some of that concern, I think if we give those kids an opportunity, they will rise to the occasion. And because of our partnership with the CLC, we've had some of the Broncos involved in our March Madness doing officiating, right? And with the high school kids. So I think it will be a really good opportunity to maybe make that bridge, because they are in kind of living in two different worlds. With mom and dad in high school and on their own. But, it could be some great opportunities for mentorship and role modeling with the kids. So, yeah. And we kind of looked at, we talked a little bit about Deer Meadow, but 14 years old is grade 9. And they're only 2 months out of grade 8. I think sometimes when you start looking at grade 6 and 7 students with 24-year-olds or 21-year-olds who are in college, it's a little bit far, but having the grade 9s in the building with the 9 to 12 school, a lot of those students, that maturity increases quite quickly, and they want to be involved. It was like Tom's Farewell, the kids did all of it with the service club, so, yeah.
Well, thank you for that information sharing. Director Wagstaff?
And just to add, I know Luann made the comment at the end about mentorship and role modeling. We've already seen some of the benefits within our volunteer piece, where students who had been in the YES program and in the Interact Club, both at Deer Meadow and at the high school, are now some of the people that are stepping forward, reaching out to us about being volunteers. So you see that, and that 14 to 24 also creates that opportunity to just naturally develop some of that mentorship between those who have been engaged when they were 14 through 18, to come back and role model that for others.
And we'll bring it back to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Rochelle. In terms of volunteering with the youth too, getting them involved in our events such as Canada Day and Old Fashioned Christmas and things like that, we really hope that's where we're going to get it started and get that ball rolling, right? Show them how much fun they're going to have with us and doing these things and what it looks like, and hopefully get them moving from there.
Information. Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dolan, and thank you for that, Michelle, because I do agree with you. Once you get a council going and you get them involved in more of a community aspect of that way, then they'll get involved in those community events as well. So, and I've seen it with the college, because I helped for the Old Fashioned Christmas one year, putting up all those lights, and there was several people from the college, several students from the college that came by and volunteered. So there has already been some initial reach out or outreach from them. So that's great. I'm looking forward to that.
Good, Mr. Gadet.
Yes, going back to Councillor Blatz's comment about a youth center, the Boys and Girls Club, they are currently working on a youth center, and that's going to be a great place for this council to meet on a monthly or any time they wish to meet.
I can just update a little on, so Boys and Girls Club has an application going into the Government of Alberta to renovate the back space of a leasehold we currently hold. So we're at 502 on 51st Street in Murray Elliott's building. And so we're hoping to renovate that back space there, and that can be maybe one of the projects that the youth are involved in as well, creating a space themselves for youth to come to. And that would primarily be kind of like a drop-in, a safe place that youth can come to get together. They have adult mentors there who care about them. And then also providing opportunities like Youth Advisory Council to connect with their community too.
Great projects coming up. I'm looking forward to, I'm sure, council and our community. How are you doing? All done? Yes. Very good. Final questions? I'll get a motion then, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd make the motion that council accept the Youth Advisory Council presentation for information. Great idea.
Yeah, and I'm sure the community will as well. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have one item. We will be going into a closed session for a public at large for our municipal library. So would you like to take a 5-minute recess, anybody, or 5 minutes before we, okay. It'll only take us, very good. Okay, I will then let the public know that we're going into a closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting. Stay online. And the meeting will stream back and replace with graphic and music. You could choose to shut down your live stream and watch it on the social media if you choose. The social media feeds can also be found at the bottom of the homepage of the town website. So I would ask for a motion, please, for the closed item on page 1. We don't have a page. It's a closed item. Who would like to make that motion to go into close, please, for section 17? Councillor Cummings.
Move that the council, I recommend that council moves into a closed section under FOIP section 17. It's right here. Thank you. Disclosure harmful to personal privacy.
You also have to say who's staying.
With, I believe, council, CAO, and the legislative clerk.
It's right there.
For the item of public at large, Olds Municipal Library. Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried.
PC Optimum wins are some of my favorite messages. Here's a great one.
Hey PC, I love the bonus redemption event. I got $140 off today at Shoppers Drug Mart when I redeemed 100,000 points. That's an extra $40.
We love it too. From hand cream and nail polish to piling up the PC Optimum points. That's how we make things better. PC Optimum points can be redeemed in store and online.
The bonus redemption event runs August 19th to 24th, exclusive to Shoppers Drug Mart. Restrictions apply. Details in store.
informational meeting.
I would ask for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. I would ask for a motion for adjournment, please, for 2:59 PM. Councillor Daly,
I so move
what are you moving?
for adjournment
Oh, thank you, at 2:59 PM.
at 2:59.
Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.